someone who is arguing vegan, someone who is arguing meat-based diets, and that was a really interesting debate. And for those of you guys who want to go check that out, go check out Joe Rogan's podcast. He has it live. But also today he had on two interesting individuals, Lane Norton and Dominic D'Agostino. For those of you who are keto or at least know somewhat of keto, you've probably heard of Dom. He's done a lot of research in like Navy SEAL divers and oxygen toxicity, utilizing ketogenic therapies, not only the ketogenic diet, but exogenous ketones as well. So really interesting piece. We are actually going to do a reaction video. I think there were some points that were brought up. We didn't watch the entire thing, but even from what I watched, there were some points that were brought up in that video that I kind of think could use some clarification, because a lot of people listened to Joe's podcast and watched it live. And there are some things, I love Dom. He's an absolutely amazing human being. And what he's doing in the research world is incredible. But he's one of the most non-confrontational individuals that you'll ever meet, which is a huge piece of who he is. And he's an incredible human being for that. But there are some things that I just don't want people to misconstrue that Lane brought up that we kind of, I think, need to add some clarification to. Like, is there actually a metabolic advantage to keto? Or do all studies that equate for calories and protein really see the same results? Are there any benefits? So I think I'll clarify those. We'll do a reaction video, and that'll be live either next week or late next week or early the week after. So I hope you guys appreciate that, and make sure you're tuning in on YouTube to check out a lot of those videos that we're posting all the time. So with that being said, appreciate you guys tuning in. Don't want to take up too much of your time, but truly want to be here to serve and help answer your questions. And so with that being said, make sure you're asking them. Our team is monitoring them. We have a bunch preloaded, and I'll just try and fire away and give you guys as much value as humanly possible here in the next however long we're able to spend together. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's do it.
What are your thoughts about natural flavors? What does this really mean?
Yeah, so good question. A lot of times things get hidden behind, I guess you're talking about labeling, like with natural flavors. Ideally, you're looking for natural flavors, colors, sweeteners. And what that means is that they're utilizing like a natural beet color, if it's like red or purplish, or they're utilizing some natural, if you see something that's black, it's likely not natural. Like, think about what they're extracting it from, and don't be afraid to ask the company questions. If you're really concerned about some of these natural flavors, like reach out to the company and say, hey, I saw that you're using a natural blue. I don't know anything that, like, what are you utilizing to pull that natural blue? And oftentimes they'll tell you, and they'll be very open about that. So just be careful if you're really concerned about natural flavors, colors, sweeteners. That's something that you can always reach out and ask to any company.
Why am I not losing weight? I feel great.
Well, that's one thing. You feel great. Here's the thing. I highly recommend you go to YouTube and check out 6 reasons you might not be losing weight on a ketogenic diet. We just did a post on this on YouTube, and there might be some tips in there for you to take away to help prevent you from stalling if you're truly on a ketogenic diet. The other thing I want to say is this: don't get hung up on the scale. Don't chase the scale, chase the result. If you feel good and you're starting to see changes in your body, amazing. Like, keep going. Like, screw the scale, throw it out. But the scale only tells you so much. And the reason I say that is because you can be gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time. So if I gain 2 pounds of muscle and I lose 2 pounds of fat, my weight's not going to change. But does that mean that I'm not getting the desired result? Absolutely not. I'm getting exactly what I want. And so that's something to keep in mind is don't chase the scale, chase the result. And so if you're seeing changes, look at that. And if you are stalling and you truly feel like, you know what, I'm not making any progress, utilize some of those tips and tools that we talked about in overcoming some of the plateaus and implement those into your life.
What's the difference between a normal keto diet and a strict keto diet?
So what's the difference between normal and strict ketogenic diet? Like, unless you're utilizing it for a certain medical condition and you need to be extremely strict, where like one small knockout might cause a seizure, like with someone who has epilepsy, most people, I think, can live like a flexible ketogenic lifestyle. Like, unless you're really trying to dial it in. That's why I like using the term lifestyle rather than diet, Diet implements temporary or indicates temporary, whereas lifestyle is something that's more flexible. There are times where throughout the day or even throughout the month, I am probably in and out, but I'm mostly in, right? You're not going to be in ketosis every minute of every hour of every day for the rest of your life. Like that's just not going to happen unless you're literally eating one thing, and that sounds miserable for the rest of your life. There is some flexibility to be involved. That's why I think it's a lifestyle. There's so many amazing. We just did a cooking every Friday. We're at Casa de Keto, where we bring together the team. We cook lunch. We cook all these amazing recipes that next week will be up on ketogenic.com. Today we had French toast. We had bread with pumpkin butter, which will be coming to a free ebook very soon for you guys to get. We mac and cheese, cauliflower mac and cheese, and we had some fudge. I know it sounds like a really weird combo.
So is keto sustainable?
It's absolutely sustainable. I think that's the key is there's so many different options. There are so many different things that we've tried out. Just make it a lifestyle.
What are your opinions on keto and THC?
Interesting question. So here's the thing. I think there's actually some interesting synergies amongst keto and CBD. I think that's more gaining a lot more traction these days is keto and CBD. And for those of you who don't know, like I'll touch on the THC part. THC and CBD are what makes up like marijuana, right? When people talk about like smoking and things like that. But if that's the route that you're deciding to take, I don't think there's any negative caveats to that, but that's certainly not legal in every single state. But more and more attention is coming to CBD. And that's a lot of like the pain relief that you get with marijuana. It's like the extract out of the marijuana that you get that's involved in a lot of the pain and anxiety portion of the benefits that people get. And so now you're seeing it pop up not only in humans, but in like pets as well. Like I give Scoot, he's laying over here. I give Scoot CBD almost every night. He has 3 legs, and his back leg, because he's compensated for his entire life, has really gotten a lot of challenges. So like he limps on it. So like he'll scoot. I hate to use it. He'll scoot along, and his back leg will kind of like lift up, and he's like limping in some capacity. And when I give him the CBD, it drastically helps him. So that's one of the things to think about. Like I think it can actually work synergistically together.
What is your favorite dessert?
Oh gosh, my favorite dessert, probably. I mean, in general, it's probably some type of like cookie or cake in general. I just had him over. He's one of my best friend, mentors, guidance, Dr. Jacob Wilson. If you guys don't know, the muscle PhD, he made like one of the most incredible, I guess you could call it a cookie cake that was keto. He's known for his cheesecake. Someone just commented cheesecake. He's known for his cheesecake. The guy makes the most amazing keto-friendly cheesecakes in the world. But he made this cookie cake that was absolutely incredible, and it was just amazing. I hope we're going to get him to make it again and give us the recipe, and we'll post that on ketogenic.com.
Is there a hypoglycemic attack during a workout when you're on keto?
So someone asked about hypoglycemia during workouts on keto. I guess the question is, like, your blood glucose can definitely fluctuate. Some people may get a spike. A lot of it depends on the type of workout that you're doing. Sometimes glucose goes down afterwards, after a workout, right? You're pulling that glucose into tissue. And so the amount that's inside of your blood likely isn't as much. But if you're doing different types of exercise, you can actually release some of that glucose into your bloodstream, and you can see like your glucose go up afterwards. If you're truly not keto adapted, you may experience some level of hypoglycemia. A lot of times people confuse hypoglycemia with feelings of like not impaired cognitive function, but like a depletion in electrolytes, which can lead to some of the same symptoms of hypoglycemia. So what I always recommend this for anyone. If you're going to do a hard workout, make sure you get some sodium in there, make sure a little bit of magnesium and like some potassium inside of that. Make sure you're getting in electrolytes. Electrolytes are essential when you're working out hard because you excrete a lot of them, especially if you're going and doing like a long session where you're sweating. Like you need electrolytes inside of you.
Targeted keto for muscle building and why it works. What is something you would recommend?
Yeah. So if your goal is truly to build muscle and you're not as concerned with losing fat mass, which I think most people come into a ketogenic lifestyle to lose weight, to lose fat mass. I hate using the term lose weight, but primarily lose fat mass. If your goal is to gain muscle and or increase performance, and that's what you're solely focused on, that's where I think a targeted ketogenic approach can be a tool. And what I mean by that is utilizing anywhere from like say 20 to 40 grams of carbohydrates around your workout. And I recommend it prior to your workout. And the reason I recommend that is because the increase in glucose that you get and the increase in insulin that's excreted from that will be blunted when you start your workout. Right? You're utilizing that fuel source during your workout, whereas afterwards, like you're no longer moving, you're not utilizing that. So I would recommend it prior to, and I think it could be a tool for some people. You get a cognitive benefit. There's actually data that if you take like Gatorade or you take some carbohydrates or glucose and swish it around your mouth and spit it out, you can get an ergogenic or a benefit from just doing that. So if that's your goal, I mean, you can have carbohydrates, or you can even do like a carbohydrate mouth rinse, which has a little bit of data showing there's a benefit.
Have you tried carnivore keto, and what's your personal experience?
Yes, I have tried carnivore keto. And actually, I talk a little bit about this. For those of you who listen to What the Fact, the podcast next week will be with Craig Emmerich. Maria, for those of you who don't know Craig, Maria has done a ton of cookbooks and has been in the keto world for years. Her husband is an engineer and now, has been on a ketogenic diet for multiple years. We talk a little bit about this carnivore keto approach. Yes, I've done it. I did it for about a month. In general, there's a lot to be discussed. And, I need to get someone who's like hardcore carnivore coming on to the podcast to discuss this with them. But in general, I think carnivore keto is a tool. I don't think it's something that I would necessarily recommend every day for the rest of your life, but I think it's a perfect elimination diet where you are eliminating out anything that causes some bloating or some irritation or some inflammation amongst you. But I don't think that like we should be bashing cauliflower or bashing avocados and saying you only need to eat meat. I think we really need to find a balance, but some people are seeing incredible benefits of that. There are people who, like he talks about, he sees in the Lyme's disease. Craig has Lyme's disease, and people that are very sensitive to any type of inflammation are seeing a lot of benefits implementing a carnivore approach. And I just recommend making sure that when you're going carnivore, that doesn't mean going to Wendy's and getting a Baconator and eating that twice a day. Like that is not what and I don't think anyone would argue that. Like that's not what they're meaning by carnivore. You truly need to get in like from tail to head. Like that's carnivore, of like eating beef liver and having some of those things, because there are essential nutrients that you can get from eating like liver. Like liver is one of the most nutrient dense options there is in the entire world. I recommend it for people who aren't even carnivore. And so making sure you're eating liver on top of that red meat, like that's truly what they mean by carnivore. So I think it's a tool.
I have Hashimoto's. Can keto be beneficial?
There is some data on that. Obviously, I'm going to always default and recommend that you work with your doctor before doing anything like that. But there is data. Hashimoto's, a lot of it's inflammatory, right? And so there's data that's showing that ketones themselves are extremely anti-inflammatory. And so there are several anecdotal reports that we've had of people coming back, and actually some published case studies of people who have implemented this and seen incredible results as far as the inflammation is concerned. So it's certainly something, if you want to try it out, by all means, I mean, do it.
What socks are you wearing today?
Oh, man. I wish I could lift my leg up that high. Let's see. I got popcorn and movie theater ones on today. Those I went with the popcorn and movie theater ones today. One of the things I'm going to try this weekend, next time I go to the movies, I saw this. They make some low carb popcorns. I've been seeing that pop up. Actually, the other day I saw something for the first time. I saw, you know how like you stick a popcorn thing like in the microwave and it pops? I saw the other day, like there's one for pork rinds now that's incredible. Like, I'm definitely going to implement that the next time I watch a movie, is like stick that in there. But I want to do like, imagine taking popcorn and like have like a low carb popcorn and then sticking like a 90% chocolate or like a 95% dark chocolate that's low in carb as well. And then you got like this chocolate popcorn, and then you like put it in the fridge, make sure it hardens up. Next time you watch a movie, if someone's ever done that, let me know. If not, I'm going to do that and do that the next time I watch a movie, for sure.
What's the difference between Himalayan sea salt and regular salt?
Yeah, so there's just different minerals. A lot of it's just different minerals, like where it's extracted from. There can be some things, especially just like table salt. I always go with like the Himalayan sea salt. Some of those things are just drastically better. They have more minerals than what you're getting with your traditional table salt.
When looking at a label and it says 16 grams of total carbs, 3 grams coming from added sugar, where's the rest go? Where is it at?
Yeah, so like a lot of time labeling is very tricky, right? So say, for instance, say you have something that says 10 carbohydrates, 3 are fiber, and then it says 3 added carbohydrates. You're like, well, there's 3 fiber, 3 added carbohydrates, that's 6. Where are the other 4 coming from? That was ultimately the question. When you label, you only have to institute like you're calling out fiber. Those fiber are still carbohydrates, and they're calling out added sugar. That means like on top of what's already in there, they're adding on top of that. So for instance, if you're going to eat like I'll use the example of blueberries or some type of fruit. Like if you're going to have that, there's already innately carbohydrates in that. And then it's only pointing out what is added in on top of that. Like foods contain carbohydrates themselves. And then labels are meant to basically tell you how many total are there, how much fiber is within that, and then how many they add in on top of that.
So, can you talk about calorie cycling?
Calorie cycling, I think it's a great tool. I think it's one of the biggest things that can help people overcome plateaus. Is so often people get stuck in this rut of like, oh, I'm just gonna like stay with the same amount of calories over and over and over again. And especially like if you're dieting, you're eating like 2,000 calories every single day. Your body will adapt to that, right? Your body will sense like, hey, this is the amount of fuel that human is providing to me. I'm going to adapt. And so that's one of the things to just keep in mind, is that your body will adapt over time. That's why I'm a big fan of like, hey, if you eat 2,000 calories, maybe on like your hard workout days, you bump that up by say 500 calories, or on rest days, maybe you come down a little bit, and like playing around with it based on your lifestyle. Like for me, I go from eating 2 meals a day during the weekdays, and then typically on the weekends, I'll have 3. Like and it's for me, that's a form of meal cycling, like meal frequency cycling and calorie cycling, because obviously having more calories, you have 3 meals, it's roughly the same portions. But then on the days I have 2 meals, I incorporate in like intermittent fasting. But I make sure on the weekends, those are some of my hardest workouts.
Can low carb sweeteners spike your insulin?
Yeah, certainly low carb sweeteners can spike your insulin. A lot of it depends on what type of insulin, what type of sweetener, that you're utilizing. Things like maltitol, sorbitol, a lot of alls, meaning like polyols, meaning sugar alcohols, other than erythritol, tend to increase glucose and tend to increase your amount of insulin, obviously, that's secreted then. So definitely need to be careful about that. You'll be running to the bathroom with a lot of those sugar alcohols, but erythritol and then xylitol is okay. It's probably next in line, but I don't even play around with xylitol anymore, just because of the pup. God forbid something spills or he gets into my cabinets or something and I'm making a treat. Xylitol is like deadly for pets. So just make sure you keep that in mind.
What are some of your in the near future goals or visions?
That's a really interesting question. Near future goals or visions. My goal truly is to help make ketogenic.com, like what we're doing, expanded throughout the world, and truly come from an educational perspective of helping people, guiding them along this process, and bringing people in what we're doing here. I think I want to show people more of the research and breaking that down, helping people who are confused, that are here to ask questions, like guiding them along the way. That's one of the biggest things that we're trying to do. And that's ultimately a goal for me, is how do we bridge this gap between the complex science that's happening every single day and the actual application of someone who wants to effectively make a change in their life. I want to help bridge that gap. And that's, to me, that's the ultimate source of fulfillment. If we can help one person every single day, I can look myself in the mirror at night and say, I'm doing exactly what I was set out to do on this world.
Okay, this is from Preston.
Man.
If some EK contains enantiomers, but LVHD can be converted to D, could that be like comparing whey to casein?
Ooh, so let me explain this question because I think it's really good. People have asked a lot about exogenous ketones lately. So exogenous ketones, that's what he means by EK. There's different enantiomers, and the best way to explain enantiomers is like this. Like if I hold up two hands, like these are mirror images of one another. So say this is when it comes to ketones, they refer to it either as D and L or R and S. But for simplicity's sake, we'll refer to it as D and L. So say this is the D enantiomer, say this is the L enantiomer. Your body takes up and utilizes, like your cells only utilize the D enantiomer. And what Preston brings up is there's some data showing that L may convert over into D. So like exogenous ketone companies that are giving both the DL enantiomer, like effectively only one part of that is being utilized. And the other one there's very limited data, and we talk a lot about this in the Ketogenic Bible, may slowly be converting over into D. I think there actually may be some inhibition, some competition, because if you're both competing for the same receptor site, only one gets in. I think like there may be some blockage. Like say L hits the receptor site first, but is not able to get in. Maybe there's some competition and some inhibition. So it's the same thing with amino acids. With amino acids, you hear of L-arginine or L-leucine. With amino acids, it's the complete opposite. The L form is the one that actively gets taken up and utilized. There's a reason why you don't see companies putting in DL-leucine. They're not putting in the enantiomer that doesn't get taken up and utilized by the body. That's why you see L-leucine or L-arginine or L-vape. Like you're seeing the L version. That's the enantiomer in amino acids that gets taken up and utilized. With ketones, it's the R or the D. Same wording.
What's your take on recent IMO debate as far as what happened recently?
Oh, I think it's great. I think what they're doing with IMO, I like to think that we hopefully had some influence on that. Our lab several years ago, 3 years ago, did one of the first ever studies looking at glucose and insulin, comparing isomalto-oligosaccharides, which is a form of fiber, to soluble corn fiber. And we were just looking at, because those were two of the most popular fiber sources out on the market. And today they're still the two most popular. If you go to any store, if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, next time you go to the store, go down the protein aisle or the bar aisle and pick up any bar and look at the fiber source. A lot of times you'll see isomalto-oligosaccharides. Sometimes you'll see it referred to as prebiotic fiber or vegetable fiber. There's a whole bunch of different names that they call it now. But isomalto-oligosaccharide, it's labeled currently on nutrition labels, it's labeled as a fiber, but it's not a fiber. And our lab showed this, and the FDA just came down with a ruling saying that they'll probably give companies about 2 years to make the switch over, because you have to be very careful with how, like, switching things that fast is just impossible for companies to do, because they have inventory, they have projections and things like that. But they'll probably give them about 1 year to 2 years to switch it over. But IMO is not a true fiber. There actually is a glucose response. There is an insulin response. It's nothing I'm not saying that you're going to get the same insulin or glucose response that you're going to get from eating a granola bar that you will from eating a bar with IMO. It's very slow digesting. It's almost like oatmeal, I would say, is probably the same type, but it's very slow digesting. So, but I wouldn't say that that's something someone who's on a ketogenic diet would necessarily want to have, because a lot of times these bars have 25 grams of carbs and you'll see like 20 grams of fiber. I'd argue that if they're using IMO, it's likely maybe only like 10 grams of fiber. And so you're getting like net 15 grams of carbs in that source. And so that's something you just need to be cognitive of. Someone asked about Quest bars. Like Quest bars use soluble corn fiber. That one is actually ketogenic. So like we've actually done studies looking at glucose and insulin levels with the fiber source. I don't know about the entire bar, but like the fiber source itself is definitely ketogenic. The soluble corn fiber that they're utilizing does not get digested and gets fermented inside of the gut to produce like good food for the bacteria inside your stomach.
Can you drink wine on keto?
Oh, I wish we could turn this around. You guys can see my wine cabinet. We used to do lives in front of the wine cabinet or the wine library. But here's the thing. Everything's in context. Like I love wine. Jacob loves wine. It's not something I would recommend have a huge glass of wine every night, right? If you have drinking problems or something like that, like definitely stay away from it as much as possible. But will going out and having a business meeting or going out and having dinner with friends or a loved one, will having a quarter to a half a glass of wine destroy you? No, it won't. So keep it in context, just keep it in moderation. Red wine, especially a lot of the drier red wines are very low in carbohydrates, very low in sugar. Don't get the sweet ones. Those obviously have a ton of sugar in them.
Ketogenic dieting and strength training, in particular powerlifters. Is it possible?
Certainly. Not only did our lab, Rachel Gregory's lab, saw that they were able to gain just as much muscle, but there was a study out of Auckland, New Zealand, and they specifically looked. It was a case pilot trial. They did about 5 individuals, and they looked at powerlifters, and they put them on a ketogenic diet and compared them to another group that was on just a regular carbohydrate diet. And they found no differences in strength, and that was published in a master's student's thesis. And he did a whole bunch of work on ketosis and a ketogenic diet and found no differences in strength measures between powerlifters who were on a ketogenic diet and those that were eating carbohydrates.
How to stop sweet cravings on keto?
Here's the thing. This is a really good point. I don't know. I mean, this is a deep question. I don't know if they'll ever you won't ever be tempted by a sweet thing. But in the same token, I'm at a point now where I can easily walk past treats. I could easily walk past candy and be like, cool, I'm completely fine. Like I used to be, and I was the guy who would eat like handfuls of sweet as fish. I was the guy who would skip dinner. Like my parents used to get mad at me. Like I would eat like a little bit of dinner and then go pound a sleeve of Oreos for dessert. So for me, being able to do that, it's a complete game changer for me. Your taste buds do adapt to what you're feeding it. So if you have been on a ketogenic diet for a long time, what I would say is and you still have a ton of those sweet cravings, likely you're still making alternatives that are using high intensity sweeteners to things. And I'm not saying those are bad. And I want to make sure everyone understands that. I make keto friendly desserts all the time, but if you're eating them consistently, utilizing some of these high intensity sweeteners that are ridiculously sweet, that can lead you kind of craving more and more and more. And then you're wondering why these cravings never go away. Well, you're constantly feeding your palate sweet foods. It's only going to feed forward off of it. Get away from that. Maybe do carnivore as a thing, and you'll completely get rid of that, right? You're eating meat versus having any type of sweets, and maybe having that kind of approach for a couple weeks might help you.
Where can someone find this research and data?
What research and data?
As far as everything you're backing with the studies.
Here, a lot of the articles that we write on ketogenic.com are all cited. We talk a lot about those. Make sure you check out articles and find resources that have citations. And the biggest thing, and actually I think we should do a video on this. I've always been wanting to do a video on this because I get this question all the time. How do I find research? Very simply, if you go to PubMed or you go to Google Scholar, I like utilizing Google Scholar. Go to Google Scholar, type in keto and A&D, all capital, whatever you're trying to look for, like keto and Parkinson's or keto and Alzheimer's, and you'll get a list of all these different all this different research that has been coming up, and that is a first step for you kind of looking into it. If that's overwhelming and you're like, hell no, I'm not doing that, like I don't want to go through that, then find research or find articles that are summing up the topic that you're looking for, and take that and look for the citations in there and make sure it's science backed.
I drink apple cider vinegar every morning. Is this potentially bad for my gut?
No, I don't think. I think there's a ton of benefits to apple cider vinegar. I think people that overly take in apple cider vinegar, like drink like copious amounts every single day, it's very acidic. I do it occasionally, but I feel better. I think there's some data with apple cider vinegar and like the gut microbiome and helping things there. A lot of it's likely the vinegar aspect of it. But if you're going to do apple cider vinegar, my only recommendation is make sure you're doing it with the mother. A lot of times people go and they'll get, there we go. Sorry, someone called. We'll get apple cider vinegar without the mother. You want the mother. That's where the health benefits are. Make sure you're getting it with the mother.
And then also you said the lemon juice affect that at all?
No, just be careful. Like a lot of acidic things can wear away the enamel on your teeth. Just be careful with some of those things. Don't overly do it. Your body's very good at regulating its own pH. Make sure you're not overly doing it, and just be careful, right? Same thing with like coffee, a lot of these acidic things. Just make sure you're not destroying your teeth.
Can keto help bad bone density?
Interesting. I do think there's some evidence for that. So a lot of the number one thing that can help with poor bone density is exercise, resistance training. If you want to improve your bone mineral density, resistance train. Your bones need some things to put pressure against. That's how they build. Like I know oftentimes when we were growing up, it was like, oh, drink milk to make your bones strong, or eat spinach. I remember Popeye, like he used to like eat spinach all the time and he'd get these big muscles and his bones were super strong. Those are very small pieces of the equation. Resistance training, males and females need to do some form of resistance training to maintain or increase their bone mineral density. That's very, very, very important. But yes, being in a state of ketosis, people look at it, oh, it's acidic, so it's going to waste away your bones. False. Stop confusing ketosis with ketoacidosis, which happens in like type 1 diabetics that's uncontrolled. Very different case. People who are in ketosis, oftentimes they're getting in plenty of calcium, plenty of potassium, plenty of magnesium through their diet if they're eating like whole foods. And that can certainly help. There is some data showing that people who are resistance training and implementing a ketogenic diet see improvements not only in body composition, but in bone mineral density.
Fasted training with caffeine and carnitine, beneficial for fat loss, performance, or useless?
I mean, caffeine and carnitine. Caffeine's a great ergogenic aid. It's probably one of the number one ergogenic aids in the world. I think it's one of the most well-studied, but the problem is once you hit the period where it no longer has an effect, and I'll classify that as if you are, and now it's going wild with the pumpkin spice lattes, forget about it. But if you are one of those people who can drink a coffee at 10:30 at night and go to bed at 10:45, the receptors in your brain are likely saturated. Like the amount of caffeine needed to have an effect, like that's why people get like 3 coffees a day. I don't think that's been, at that point, caffeine's not going to be beneficial to you. Your receptors are saturated. There's very little ergogenic benefit to that. But if you're sensitive like me, like before we've been shooting videos today, we were doing podcasts, jumped on this live, like I had a little splash of caffeine, boom, like I'm all hyped up now. Like I'm probably gonna go get a workout in and hopefully crush it later. But that's when caffeine can be have an ergogenic benefit. There is some data showing that caffeine can actually increase ketone levels. That's fascinating. Dr. Stephen Cunane's doing a lot of that work. So caffeine actually may help further ketosis. That's an interesting piece to think about. Do
you know of any physicians in Tampa that are pro keto?
Yes. highly recommend you go check out ketogenic.com. We have a doctor finder wherever you're located. And hopefully if you guys know of any, please let us know. And we want to help expand that. It's completely free. You just go on there, put in your zip code, and find someone in your area. And if you know someone in your area and they're not on our list, contact us. There's a contact form, and let us know, because I want to put them on there, because I want more people to have access to that. But in Tampa, there's a bunch. One of the ones, like I always get my IVs. Sometimes you guys go see me get IVs. Dr. Lisa Koch. She's one of the ones in Tampa. Highly recommend her and what she's doing. But there's definitely several all over the country, and not only in Tampa, but all over the country.
What happens to leptin on keto?
Yeah, so leptin and ghrelin. So ghrelin's like your hunger hormone. Leptin is what like keeps you full. So they kind of balance each other out. So you have your leptin, you have your ghrelin. A lot of times what you see, it depends on the person's metabolic state. Like if you're overweight and obese, you can develop something known as leptin resistance, and you continuously never feel full. But on a ketogenic diet, we tend to see leptin levels go up, which is a good thing. And ghrelin level, like your hunger hormones, tend to go down. Like a lot of times people who are on a ketogenic diet are hungry a lot less. And that's the reason why you're seeing people do eating 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day. You're seeing that happen all the time.
If you mess up and eat some carbs, what's the best way to get back on track?
Just do it. Stop worrying about it. Just get into it. You can do intermittent fasting the following day. Make sure you go crush a workout, like move. I think that's one of the most underrated things is like get moving. Think about it. If you eat carbohydrates and now basically those carbohydrates go to glycogen, the goal is to reburn that glycogen, like get that out to get you back in a state of ketosis. Move, do some sort of intermittent fasting. I think those are two great things to do.
How can we start to introduce keto to our pets?
Highly recommend the Keto Pet Sanctuary. I saw someone on Facebook jumped on and recommended that. The Keto Pet Sanctuary is doing incredible work. There's a lot of options now. This is one of the topics that I've been confused on. I feed Scoot keto. I'm still not full on the raw part. There are people that like yell at me and are like, dude, you need to go raw. I'm like, I can't, like, I'm not ready to make that jump yet. I need to do more research on it. But a lot of people that are out there are feeding their pets like raw keto, like literally feeding them raw meat. For me, I just need to understand it more, and I haven't had the time to dig into it. But I'd love to hear from you guys if anyone is doing raw, feeding their pets raw. I think a lot of times, I know a lot of people are doing it, especially with their dogs. But I feed him. I just start. Make sure you don't bump up the fat too quickly. I made that mistake, and poor Scoot had problems with the bathroom for the first week, and it wasn't helpful for anyone because I had to clean all that up. But just introduce it slowly and then increase the fat. Just be careful. A lot of times, especially if they have like pancreatitis or something like that, they can't handle as much fat. So just be careful with it. He eats like a king. Like today, his breakfast was sausage, steak, ground beef with a little bit of bacon fat mixed into it, and some bacon, cauliflower rice, and green beans, like all mixed together in his little bowl. It's pretty good.
Is there a change to a person's RMR from simply being ketosis, assuming there is no change in caloric intake?
There certainly could be. One of the things that in 2 weeks you'll hear from Dr. Jacob Wilson, the Muscle PhD. We just did a podcast together that I think will blow your mind about, is there a metabolic advantage to keto? And one of the pieces is you do see an increase in like brown adipose tissue. If you're increasing brown adipose tissue, which is a good type of fat that you want, if you're seeing that, it can actually result in an increase in calories, burns. So RMR is like your resting metabolic rate. Sometimes people see that their resting metabolic rate goes up on a ketogenic diet.
Does every meal have to be a perfect keto split, or can it fluctuate and then fit in macros accordingly at the end of the day?
Ooh. I'd highly recommend, as much as possible, eating balanced meals and whole foods. I am very fearful of the concept of if it fits your macros. I don't like it in the norm. I just almost said normal world. I don't like it in the people that are eating carbohydrates. I don't like it in people I don't recommend it in people who are doing keto. And the reason why is what happens when people go, if it fits your macros. Oftentimes, I know people who have done this, and they go, if it fits your macros, and they wait. And at the end of the day, it's like 11 o'clock at night, and they have so many calories left of fat, and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to load up on fat. And then they eat this enormous fat bomb and they go to bed. And I'm like, were you hungry? They're like, no, but I had all these macros left. I'm like, cool, you should just went to bed. Like it's not forcing, like it leaves someone in this mindset of like, I need to get this in before the end of the day. The only thing I would say, like for if it fits your macros, is make sure you're getting your dang protein in. I think that's one of the most important pieces, is make sure you're getting your protein in, because a lot of times you see people who, especially females, who are losing their hair and are having like keto rash. Make sure you're getting your protein. Make sure you're getting your protein in. If you don't hit fat goals by the end of the day, cool, that's completely fine. You might utilize some of your own body fat. Go to bed if you're tired. Don't force in a fat bomb. Or what's even worse is, I have 30 grams of carbs throughout the entire day. They eat fat and protein. Then they're like, I'm going to have some regular Swedish fish at night and have like 4 Swedish fish because that's 30 grams of carbs. I'm like, that's not what we're talking about. Like that's what I get fearful of with the if it fits your macros.
Is there any research in New England Journal of Medicine or any human research in medical journals you could recommend for doctors who may not think it's good?
Yes, there is a lot. I mean, the research is overwhelming. One of the things, and this is on me for not pushing this faster, and I promise it'll be out by the end of the year, is we're going to have inside of our Keto Club access, and we have a lot of them mocked up, but I need to go through and like finalize them. What we wanted to do was basically give everyone like a packet. Like, hey, I want to approach my doctor for keto and Alzheimer's. I want to approach my doctor for keto and cancer. I want to approach my doctor for keto and PTSD. And like together this little packet, because I understand from a physician or a doctor's perspective, they don't have time to go through all this literature and be like, let me read on the safety. Let me read on this. We've condensed that down and put together like a 5-page packet of like the main points that people need to take away, what the research has said in like a summary format. And that way you guys can like print it out and like bring it to them, and then allow them to say, you know what? All right, I'm going to support you on this. And if they don't, and you're really gung-ho on it, find a new doctor, right? At the end of the day, it's your body. That's what you need to take into account. One more question.
Do you think the world is waking up to keto?
Oh my gosh. I think keto is exploding. I think the world was always woken up to keto. I think it's about time we made keto louder, and for all the right reasons. I don't think it needs to be like a dogma thing of like, keto's better than you guys suck, we're the keto world over here. Like one of the things that we're the keto squad. I think that's important. That's something that we're going to be bringing together, is like bringing together this community. I think is super important. But more and more research is now coming out showing the benefits far beyond just body composition. That's why I know that this conversation is here, and it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere, because you look at what happened with Atkins. It was like this huge explosion. It became this fad diet, started putting out protein bars that were like 20 grams of maltitol. People were having problems in the bathroom. Their stomachs were destroyed. They weren't seeing progress. And then boom, they came back down. They were like, damn, that Atkins thing, like it destroyed my stomach. Like screw that. And it's because they put out a ton of crappy products that weren't truly keto. But now you're starting to see more and more companies that are doing the right thing. We're going to have an entire certification program to help them along that way, to test them out, to make sure they are legitimately keto. But also, it's here to stay. You're seeing more and more people. Like, I don't like using this as a sense of like, oh, this is great. But you're seeing more and more celebrities jump on board and kind of get that kind of jump. You're seeing like all over the world, people are doing this. So I think keto's here. I think it's here to stay. I think the research is just starting, and we're starting to see more and more people jump on board and understand that the benefits for being in a state of ketosis are far beyond just body composition. You're looking at the brain. You're looking at longevity. You're looking at the signaling aspect that ketones themselves have. That's awesome.
One more.
One more. Kim asked, what do you know about keto and fatty liver? There is, so you need just be careful with it. Again, always work with your doctor, but at the end of the day, there is some data showing that keto may actually decrease some of those symptoms associated with like fatty liver. You just need to be careful with the amount and types of fat you introduce very early on. So just make sure you're working with it, playing with it, and adjusting it. With that said, guys, appreciate y'all jumping on. I know you guys are busy. Hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Everyone on Facebook, everyone on YouTube, everyone on Instagram, everyone watching this afterwards. Appreciate you guys tuning in. You guys are what keeps this conversation going. We're here to try and help provide as much research and resources as possible and help clear the air, answer your questions. And hopefully we're doing that to the best of our ability. So appreciate you guys so much. Hope you all have an amazing weekend. We'll talk to you guys soon. Love y'all. As always, make positivity louder.